Zapp band member has just confirmed what fans have been whispering about for years, the chilling rumors of a Troutman family curse. And now, the spotlight is back on the tragic tale of Roger and Larry Troutman, two brothers who built a funk empire only to have it end in unthinkable bloodshed. One was a musical genius, the other a sharp business mind. But behind the hits and fame, a bitter rivalry. Was it envy, betrayal, or something much, much darker? What really happened on April 25th, 1999 might just leave you speechless. Let's dive into the untold story.
You said it earlier. You said that you were speaking about Roger's talents, which is it's not a question about how talented Roger was,
right? And that
his work is left for all of us to enjoy,
right?
And
on the morning of April 25th, 1999, Roger Troutman, one of the most sampled artists in R&B and hip-hop history, was shot dead in Dayton, Ohio. The world was stunned. News outlets buzzed with the shocking revelation. The man who pulled the trigger was his own brother, Larry Troutman. According to multiple reports and whispers from the streets, Larry ambushed Roger behind their family-owned studio, shooting him 4 times, twice in the torso and twice in the back, as Roger struggled to escape with what little strength he had left. But the story didn't end there. In fact, it took an even darker turn. Larry, realizing the gravity of what he'd done, turned the gun on himself. He shot himself in the head and crashed his car into a tree. Eyewitnesses watched in horror as the scene unraveled. During the investigation, police confirmed that the firearm recovered from Larry matched the wounds on both brothers. Roger was rushed to a nearby hospital, but it was too late. He was pronounced dead, and with that, the so-called Troutman family curse officially began. Close family members later revealed that in the months leading up to the incident, tensions were boiling between the two. Roger, who was clearly the star of Zapp, had started exploring a more independent career path, eventually going solo under the name Roger. He had even scored a number, one hit in 1997 with the track I Want to Be Your Man, a feat Roger admitted he never saw coming, and one that completely surprised him.
Were you surprised by the success of Unlimited and I Want to Be Your Man?
Totally surprised. I worked harder on that record than I did any record at all because I had done so many records before, and I was really afraid, to just remain a dance, zany funketeer. I wanted to reach out.
But all this move didn't sit well with Larry. Behind the scenes, Larry had always been the business brain, Roger's manager, the power behind the throne. But with Roger pulling away from the band and striking out on his own, Larry was losing control, money, and influence. 3 things he wasn't ready to give up.
Zapp and Roger. Is there a difference?
I guess the distinction would be the difference between a Mick Jagger record and a Rolling Stone record. Sometimes I think Mick Jagger goes out and he does a project by himself because he feels like expressing himself as a solo artist.
To make things worse, after the group released their 5th album, Vibe, in 1989, Zapp's chart-topping magic seemed to fizzle out. For over a decade, their family-run enterprise had been struggling to keep up, and to Larry, Roger's exit felt like betrayal, like he was abandoning ship just before it sank. One of the Troutman brothers later had this to say about Roger's murder. When he got shot, I knew it was coming, but I didn't think those gunshot wounds would take his life. Devastating. What a great loss. He was so creative in the studio. He could walk in and rhyme a song on anything. He was a great artist, very lyrical, like a poet. Despite their disagreements, Roger and Larry had never shown real aggression toward each other. They were close, brothers bound by music, history, and blood. So, what pushed Larry over the edge? Even their closest relatives couldn't say for sure. Just like their larger-than-life careers, the funeral for Roger and Larry Troutman drew an estimated 3,000 mourners to Solid Rock Church in Monroe. Relatives, fans, and fellow artists, including the Zapp Band, Bootsy Collins, Shirley Murdoch, and members of funk legends the Ohio Players and Lakeside, came to honor the music pioneers. Roger and Larry were buried side by side, sharing the same headstone, a detail many found deeply unsettling. A man laid to rest beside his own killer, But what most people didn't know was that the most disturbing revelations were still to come. Now, to understand the feud, we have to rewind all the way back to their roots. Roger and Larry were 2 of 10 siblings, born into a large, musically gifted family. They grew up alongside brothers like Lester and Terry Troutman, raised by their parents Addie Ruth Troutman and Rufus Troutman Sr. in a household where music was a way of life. Roger, always the visionary, started forming bands from a young age, teaming up with friends like David Spitzmiller, Rick Shoney, and Roy Beck. Eventually, he became the founder of Zapp, a band that would go on to redefine funk and leave an undeniable mark on West Coast hip-hop, thanks to the countless artists who sampled their sound. Troutman's musical ability was never constrained. He was the multi-instrumentalist, singer, and arranger for Zapp, and was known for his versatility, using a vocoder talk box to create computerized vocals.
And every time I would use the voice box, people would be dancing until I used it, and when I started using it, they would look up and they would seem to hypnotize them in a way. Yeah. And it really works. Watch this.
He was known as a ladies' man, or what Roger's daughter joked as, Papa was a Rolling Stone. In a 1988 interview with the Dayton Daily News, Roger Troutman recalled his start in the music business and the lesson his father, Rufus, taught him. As a 13-year-old, Troutman was a budding musician, setting up gigs at sock hops and community functions. He asked his father for a guitar, but was told he had to learn to play one first. He did, learning his father's favorite songs note for note, which always made his parents happy whenever they got back from work.
So what I would do through the week, Michael, is I wanted my parents to be happy, so through the week, while they were at work, I would pick their favorite songs that they listened to on the weekends, and I would learn the songs note for note. So I could, when they would come home, I would be able to say, watch this, Dad, and I would play his favorite song, and it would make him smile.
But for Roger, there was more to it than just making his parents happy. There was a catch. Every time he successfully learned an instrument and played their favorite song on it, he was rewarded with the instrument itself. Troutman recalled his father later telling him, "I did that so you would understand that instruments are merely a vehicle to express what's inside you. If you had just picked up one instrument, it would have limited you." The Troutman brothers, Larry, Lester, Roger, and Terry, who formed Zapp, grew up in Hamilton, Ohio, a small town near Dayton. The 4 brothers began playing music at an early age and made a name for themselves under the name Roger and the Human Body. In the late 70s, they were discovered by funk legend Bootsy Collins. Bootsy and his fellow bandmate Dr. Funkenstein, George Clinton, helped get the group a deal with Warner Brothers Records.
Really 2 beginnings, and it was like sort of my formative beginning, and that was like around Hamilton, Ohio, the Cincinnati, Dayton area, where I just performed everywhere, every kind of talent program, and did everything I could do to make it. And then I met Bootsy Collins and George Clinton, and they introduced me to the key people at Warner Brothers and gave me total freedom in the studio, paid for everything.
Once signed, they changed their name from The Human Body to Zapp, which was Terry's nickname. Their first single, More Bounce to the Ounce, shot to number 2 on the soul singles charts in the fall of 1980, the first of many hits. Roger and the band dominated the 80s with their revolutionary and unique sound, releasing bangers like Computer Love, I Want to Be Your Man, Do-Wah Diddy, and more. By the 1990s, Zapp's light had started to fade, but not Roger's. He collaborated with artists like H-Town, Tupac, Dr. Dre, Tech Nine, and Sounds of Blackness. It seemed like everyone wanted to work with Roger, and only Roger. Some, including Larry's daughter, said this may have upset Larry, who had spent most of his adult life being his little brother's hype man. Zapp made their professional television debut on the first and only Funk Music Awards show. After Uncle Jam Records shut down, they signed to Warner Brothers and released their self-titled debut, which yielded More Bounce to the Ounce. The album reached the top 20 of the Billboard 200, launching Zapp and Roger into national stardom. Roger was even featured on Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style and Eazy-E's Straight Off the Streets of Motherfucking Compton. But his biggest hit came in 1995 when he appeared on Tupac and Dr. Dre's California Love. That single hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, sold over 2 million copies, and earned Roger a Grammy nomination. Even decades later, Roger's influence lived on. Kanye West sampled I Want to Be Your Man in RoboCop. T-Pain built a brand off the talkbox sound Roger pioneered. Bruno Mars's 24K Magic had Roger's funk fingerprints all over it. Roger wasn't just ahead of his time. He was the blueprint for an entire sound that shaped modern pop, R&B, and hip-hop. And yet, despite his massive success, his relationship with Larry deteriorated. According to Terry, the situation wasn't just about money. Roger was 47, Larry was 54. They had spent over 25 years building their legacy together. Now, Roger wanted to walk away. At a certain point, Roger wanted to do his own thing, says Terry, which presented a conflict. And so therefore, you've got a conflict that was deeper than business. It was their whole life they'd been together. And then for it to break off, that was a strong move, man. Strong move. Behind the synths, the talk boxes, and the platinum records, a storm was brewing. And when it finally broke, it didn't just cut short Roger's legacy, it caught up to nearly every member of the family. Long before the infamous 1999 murder, the Troutman family had already endured heartbreaking tragedy. Roger's younger sister, Gloria, was killed as a toddler after being struck by a car, a devastating loss that haunted the family for years. Then came the death of another sister, Leona Troutman, who died in a car crash while on her way to their uncle's funeral. These early losses set a grim tone for the family. But still, despite all the pain the Troutmans had already endured, the most shocking chapter of their story had yet to unfold. Just 4 years after Roger's tragedy struck the family again. His son, Roger Troutman II, better known as Lynch, suffered a head injury that left him in a coma. According to word on the street, the injury happened during a violent street fight Lynch had been involved in. Sadly, he passed away on January 3rd, 2003 at just 33 years old. In 2012, Roger's other son, Brent Lynch, was arrested for the murder of his ex-girlfriend, Carolyn Leet. According to police, Leet was found on a bed in Lynch's home, covered in bruises and blood. She had a traumatic head injury and multiple fractures. Lynch claimed it was an accident, but the coroner disagreed, revealing that she was bleeding from her nose, mouth, and eyes, and had what appeared to be defensive scratches on her hands and arms. There was a blood splatter on the wall about 12 inches in diameter. He pled guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 32 years in prison. Lynch was also ordered to pay $10,325.97 to Leet's mother, brother, and sisters. This included funeral costs, but that was nothing compared to the pain he had caused Carolyn Leet's family. And Carolyn's mom in particular had a lot to get off her chest when she said, "I am Carolyn's mother and I taught her to love," Sheila Leet said. "And now I find myself filled with a hate I didn't have before. It eats away at my insides and leaves the void left by Carolyn's death even greater." Lynch, who was filled with deep regret, said, "It wasn't supposed to go down like this. This wasn't supposed to happen. It was the alcohol." Inside the jail, Lynch told the staff, "Please be nice to me. I'm here for a long time." But that wasn't the end of Troutman's family woes. Fast forward to January 1st, 2020, and tragedy struck again. This time, it wasn't one of Roger Troutman's siblings or children. It was his granddaughter, Alexis Ali Jai Lynch, known in the music world as Lexi Ali Jai, died of an accidental overdose in a hotel room. She was just 21. At this point, fans couldn't ignore it anymore. Was the Troutman family cursed? From childhood deaths to violent, from tragic accidents to lost talent, it felt like fate kept clawing at their family tree. Some fans online even began calling them the Kennedys of funk music. Brilliant, influential, but haunted. In a rare interview, Terry Troutman admitted, "Every time I step into a studio, I feel him. It's like Roger never really left. The music keeps him alive. But man, the pain never fades." Maybe it was the pressure of fame, maybe it was betrayal, or maybe, just maybe, the Troutman legacy was always destined to be both iconic and cursed. Whatever you believe, one thing's clear: behind the bounce, the beats, and the funk was a family marked not just by genius, but by loss, violence, and a legacy soaked in heartbreak. But hey, that's gonna be all for today's video. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Was the Troutman family truly cursed? Or is this just a tragic mix of bad luck, fame, and coincidence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're into messy real-life stories behind music legends, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. We've got plenty more where this came from.